Wait for it. About to get funky. Oh yeah! Woo! I should have been a drummer. Drummers are so cool. So, I posed the question at the end of the last episode as to whether anybody could guess what that song was, and we did have a few people, I think 2 or 3, that got it right. It's the Miami Vice theme, appropriate for the Miami Open. And for those of you who got the question right, got you a little prize, some Big League Chew. That's Big League Chew. The baseball players use it, but I think it might be good for tennis players too. You know, might as well give it a try, see if it has any effect. Again, a pouch of Big League Chew I will send to you personally for those of you who did get the answer right. So, welcome to Tennis Talk Daily. I think a few of you are probably wondering what exactly is going on up here in this area. In that area, and it's a legitimate question, so let me explain it to you. First, this little tie here is the Cat in the Hat tie. It's the tie that the Cat in the Hat wears. Got it from him personally. And these things right here are my wife's sunglasses that I've kind of stuck up here so I get kind of the double vision look, kind of double vision. And then finally, this little mask, and if I just take the sunglasses up, you get a little peek at something interesting. Oops! Cute little ears. Well, this mask is a mask that signifies a character from a Japanese role-playing game, video game of some kind called Yokai Watch. And this mask is the little kitty cat, cute little kitty cat in Yokai Watch named Jibanyan. So, the next question that naturally arises for you people out in the audience is, can Aaron do a serious analysis with the Cat in the Hat tie on, with his wife's sunglasses kind of hanging off his head, and with the Japanese role-playing video game kitty Jibanyan, the mask of Jibanyan on his head and face? Can he do that? And of course the answer is, of course I can't give you a very serious and insightful and good tennis analysis with all this stuff on. It's a distraction, so I'm just going to take it off. And now, of course, a little better. Now, let's get down to brass tacks here, folks. We need to get serious. Just kidding. We'll take this off. We'll take this off. We'll even take... I should do it as a tribute to the Cat in the Hat, but we'll take the Cat in the Hat tie off as well. Welcome to the show. Subscribe to the channel to get essential tennis commentary. We are doing daily commentary of the Miami Open, and we are still doing an analysis, a sort of post-mortem on Indian Wells. And the one question that I wanted to raise today was, what can we learn from Indian Wells and the outcomes at Indian Wells about the intergenerational dynamic that we've been discussing over the last few weeks? What can we learn about the tournament? And I want to look at this question. Well, one part of the answer is that there is a different dynamic on the women's side from the men's side. Of course, as most of you know, the last 2 people standing on the women's side were spring chickens, so to speak, next-gen people. Naomi Osaka, who went on to win the title and become queen of the desert, and Daria Kasatkina. Both of those individuals have had some increasingly strong results over the past, say, year. Osaka was able to get into the 4th round of the Australian this year. Kasatkina was in the 4th round of the U.S. Open in 2017. So, but nevertheless, 2 very young people are the last two standing on the women's side. Well, that is in stark contrast to what happened with the men. Generally, what happened with the men in Indian Wells supports the theory that the older men are doing well and, in fact, better than they have ever done in the history of tennis. That is the truth. Let's just look at the fourth round, for example. How many folks in the old guard, as we're calling it, were in the fourth round? You have Federer, Jeremy Chardy, who's 31. You have Pablo Cuevas, who's 32. You have Kevin Anderson, who's 31. You have Feliciano Lopez, who's 36. Sam Querrey, over 30. I'm not sure if it's 30 or 31. Marco Bagdatis. I'm losing count. Marco Bagdatis, 32 years old. Delpo, of course, 29. Leonardo Meyer, 30 years old. And, of course, Philippe Kohlschreiber, who is 34 years old. That was the fourth round. And in the fourth round, there were only three folks from the next gen. That was Coric, Chung, and Taylor Fritz. And then there were only three folks in the fourth round from the lost gen as well. And that was, those individuals were Busta Raonic and Pierre-Hugues Herbert. Pierre-Hugues Herbert, which is the correct pronunciation. And so, but by the time of the quarterfinals, you only have one person standing in the lost generation and two folks standing from the next generation, of course, Chung and Coric. By the semifinal, there's one next gen, Coric, one lost gen, Raonic, and two older guard people, although Federer is kind of a generation of his own. So, listen, on the one hand, you do have a lot of support for the theory and for just the assertion, the empirical assertion that the older men are doing better than they have ever done in the history of tennis, and that was borne out at Indian Wells. And you also, on the other hand, have a couple of figures that were getting deeper into the tournament. You do have the Coric run to the semifinal, which is significant. We're going to have to just see what happens with him. We'll have to see what happens on the faster courts of Miami with Borna Coric. You do have Raonic, who was one of the lost generation. You think he was kind of lost, really was lost, but here he is now fighting through to the semifinal where he lost to Del Potro. And so there is evidence that possibly we could be seeing some movement from the next gen. We need to keep a close eye on Taylor Fritz. But in general, we have evidence that there's going to be maybe some next-gen movement. Maybe they're going to be stirring up things a little bit. Nobody was talking about Coric, really, before Indian Wells, but he really did display some great tennis, was just engaging in this fantastic footwork, these deep and penetrating ground strokes that was suffocating Federer, and was doing a great job. He has a game that surprised me in terms of how he could kind of push Federer's buttons a bit in that semifinal match. But I think generally it's the older guard doing better. But you have that contrast. On the women's side, it was pretty much the complete opposite in terms of the final result. So those are the questions I pose to you today. Why are the young women doing so well? And in fact, they were the last two standing, were members of this next gen. I mean, they're just basically spring chickens. They're babies. And there they are, the last two standing. But on the other hand, you have a completely different result for the men where the older folks are dominating primarily, although you do have glimpses of hope and glimpses of a future for folks like Chung and Coric. So how can we explain that? We're kind of back to the same question. We were talking about the speed of the courts, and some viewers mentioned a couple of videos back that the slower courts may benefit the older people. But that apparently doesn't apply to the women on the one hand, and you also have people like Federer, I'm pretty sure folks like Feliciano Lopez that probably don't like the slower courts, whose games are not sort of suited to those slower courts, at least not perfectly. And so I'm not sure whether that explains it, but maybe it does help explain it. It doesn't explain Federer's loss. As I was saying yesterday, I don't think the slower courts explain why Federer was out of sorts in those last two matches and why he ultimately lost the tournament or lost the final. He won the tournament in many ways, folks. We have to understand that. To get to double championship point at Indian Wells in 2018 for Roger Federer was an amazing accomplishment, an amazing achievement. The championship might as well have been his, and he sort of knows that. But we do have this situation that is a contrast, isn't it, with the men versus the women. And though the slow courts don't explain the Federer struggle in the end, I think possibly they help explain why the older folks are doing better on the men's side. But you got this question about why they aren't helping the younger women. So let's talk about this. Let's get a discussion going. Miami will be a test because those are some faster courts. Of course, we didn't have Nick Kyrgios in this tournament at Indian Wells either, so he could kind of stir things up quite a bit in Miami. So much more to come, much more tennis talk to come. Subscribe to the channel, get the essential commentary. We're doing daily commentary once, twice, 3 times. You know me. I want to have a tennis party here, and I want the theme song to Miami Vice to be playing at our tennis party, but maybe not right now. Maybe today I'll just bid you adieu in the beautiful kind of ambiance of my office. Have a great day. I look forward to talking with you more tomorrow. Comment on this fascinating issue with respect to the generations. What can we learn from Indian Wells about the intergenerational conflicts and tensions and the allocations of influence on the men's side versus the women's side, because we have the different result on the women's side. So interesting stuff. Comment below, and I'll look forward to talking with you soon. Bye-bye.